is with deep regret that we inform you of the death of Prime Minister Indira Gandhi. She was assassinated by members of her own personal security guard at her residence this morning. Mrs. Gandhi was rushed to the All India Institute of Medical Sciences, but all efforts to save her life failed.
Indira Gandhi, India's Prime Minister, has been assassinated. She was mother not only to me, but to the whole nation. She served the Indian people to the last drop of her blood. You all know how dear to her heart was the dream of a united, peaceful and prosperous India. An India in which all Indians, irrespective of their religion, language or political persuasion, live together as one big family in an atmosphere free from mutual rivalries and prejudices.
When the world first saw him, he was shrouded in tragedy. But where did the story of Rajiv Gandhi begin? The story of Rajiv Gandhi began even before the beginning. It began when Indira Nehru was 13. One day, Indira's mother, Kamala Nehru, collapsed outside a college during an anti-British demonstration. An 18-year-old student came to her aid and nursed her. The student was Feroz Jahangir Gandhi. Inspired by Kamala, he also joined the national movement. Feroz became a frequent visitor to their house, and when Indira was 16, he proposed to her. Indira declined and went to study at Shanti Niketan for a year. On 28 February 1936 in Switzerland, the ailing Kamala Nehru lost her last battle against death. She was 37. And on her deathbed, she expressed a wish that Indira and Feroz should marry. Over the next 6 years, while Indira was at Somerville College, Oxford, and Feroz at the London School of Economics, their friendship turned to love. Feroz proposed to her many times, till one day in Paris, on the steps of the Basilica du Sacré-Cœur, he proposed again, and this time Indira accepted. It was the end of the summer of 41. Paris was bathed in soft sunshine. The air was filled with romance, and Feroz's camera captured that feeling of posterity. A controversial year later, the marriage between the Parsi Feroz and the Kashmiri Indira was solemnized on March 26, 1942. Although Nehru was initially dismayed at the alliance, while in jail, he himself wove a pink cotton sari for her to wear at her wedding. Indira Priyadarshini Nehru became Indira Gandhi. On 20th August 1944, in Bombay, at 8:22 a.m., at what was then the Shirodkar Clinic, Indira gave birth to her firstborn, christened Rajiv Ratna Gandhi by his grandfather.
बचपन में उसने बहुत ही कम तंग किया। जब बिल्कुल छोटा बेबी था तो महीने भर तो रात और दिन रोया। और इत्तेफाक से मैं अपनी बुआ के संग ठहरी थी तो उन लोगों ने देखभाल की, मुझे परेशानी नहीं हुई। लेकिन मैं ज़रूर घबराई कि अब इलाहाबाद वापस ले जाऊंगी, अगर इसी तरह से रोएगा तो क्या होगा। लेकिन उसने रेल में ही बंद कर दिया और उसके बाद ज़रा भी तंग नहीं किया। अकेले अपने खेलता था। शरारत तो जैसे मामूली बच्चे करते हैं वैसे थे, ज़्यादा शरारती नहीं, कभी तंग नहीं किया।
Nehru was still in prison and longed to see his grandson, but the British authorities refused permission. Indira learnt that her father was scheduled to stay the night in Naini prison in Allahabad while being shifted from Ahmednagar fort to Bareilly prison. Indira and Feroz took the little 2-month-old Rajiv and waited outside Naini prison jail gates. It was late at night. The British always did these things when it was dark. Finally, many hours later, Nehru's car passed by. Indira lifted the baby up under a very dim roadside light. Nehru peered and caught the first glimpse of his new grandson. 10 months later, he would hold him in his arms.
When I think back to my grandfather, to Nana as we used to call him, I think of a man who could really switch levels very quickly. If he was with us, when he was with children, he would be talking to us at our level. He also took a lot of interest in seeing that we got involved in various things, perhaps to broaden our horizons, perhaps to develop our characters. Then sometimes he'd take us on his foreign trips. I remember Yugoslavia in the 50s. But perhaps what I remember best is the human values that he inculcated in us. Perhaps because of that grounding, I still find it very difficult to understand all the complications of religion and caste that exist in India.
Rajiv spent his early childhood in the Prime Minister's house as the grandson of Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru.
क्योंकि उसकी संजय से उम्र बड़ी थी तो मेरे पिता के ज़्यादा निकट था वो। तो वो कहीं जाते थे तो अक्सर संग ले जाते थे, मैं न भी जाऊं तब भी। और उनको घोड़े का शौक था तो उनके संग घोड़े की सवारी करता था।
He was very proud of him, I'm sure. I know he was. You couldn't help it. I was proud of him. He was such a handsome baby. And he was the first grandchild. He was my first grandchild too. You know, in India, a puppy is also a grandmother.
At 20, Rajiv faced the loss of a powerful influence in his life, the death of his grandfather.
My only regret is I was so young when my grandfather died. If I had been older or he had lived longer, there would have been so much more that I could have imbibed. Well, when Sanjay and I were small, we used to do the sort of things all children did. And we'd play all the normal games, hockey, football, cricket, the Indian games, gulli danda and other games. I don't remember us being anything other than just normal like any other children.
मेरे संग इन्होंने कभी मांगा नहीं जैसे हम सुनते हैं बच्चे कह रहे हैं हमें ये खिलौना चाहिए, मुझे बिल्कुल याद नहीं आता है कि कोई चीज़ उन्होंने कहा कि ये हमें चाहिए, ये ला दो। हमें सोचना होता था भाई क्या चीज़ अच्छी लगेगी जो हम दे सकते हैं।
My impression is, from the little I knew of Sanjay, that there was a world of difference between them. In their thinking, in their actions, even in their speech. Rajiv was more gentle, always. Even when he wanted to do something naughty, or he wanted to say something bad, he said it in a reasonably soft way.
There are a lot of things where Sanjay and I had very similar views. In some areas, we had differences. Sometimes we fought like mad, at other times we were very good friends. He was much more extrovert, I'm more introverted. He liked playing pranks, cutting jokes. I think I'm a little more sober.
जब बहुत ये काफ़ी छोटे थे दोनों भाई, तो संजय के टॉन्सिल्स का ऑपरेशन हुआ था। तो आपको मालूम है भाइयों छोटे जब बच्चे होते हैं तो झगड़े भी बहुत होते हैं, लेकिन जितने देर ऑपरेशन मतलब हुआ तो बाहर बैठा रहा कमरे के कि हम यहीं बाहर बैठेंगे जहाँ हो रहा। और फिर जब कमरे में लाया गया अस्पताल में तो खुद बैठा और कहा नहीं, मैं उस वक्त हर वक्त मुंह पोंछना होता है क्योंकि वो टपकता रहता है कुछ। तो नर्स थी, मैं थी, कहेंगे नहीं हम करेंगे भाई का। तो खुद देखता रहा, मगर जैसे ही संजय को होश आया वैसे अच्छा अब हम जाते हैं। तो इस तरह से मतलब दिखावटी चीज़ से बहुत हमेशा ज़रा झिझकता है, लेकिन काम के वक्त या जब चिंता का होता है तब हमेशा साथ देने की आदत रही है।
I was close to my mother for obvious reasons. At the same time, I was also very close to my father, and especially his interest in hobbies and in doing things kept us very close together.
Feroz Gandhi, a journalist, was also a progressive congressman and a member of parliament.
He was a bit reserved, he was quiet. At the same time, he had a very, very good sense of humor. He liked doing things with his hands. He had a little workshop and he was always doing things. He had a little lathe and drills and all sorts of things.
बहुत ही छोटे थे राजीव और संजय दोनों, तो कोई भी बिजली की चीज़ बिगड़ जाए तो हमेशा मेरे पति कहते थे चलो इसको ठीक करो तुम, और वो ठीक करते थे जैसे अब मेरा पोता करता है यहाँ।
I think he also taught me a dignity of labor, not hesitating to work with your hands, being straight and truthful, not hesitating to speak out.
On 8th September 1960, Feroz Gandhi died of a severe heart attack. He was only 48.
The last time I remember seeing my father alive was on a holiday that we had all gone for, the whole family together, all four of us. And we'd spent about a month in Kashmir in a houseboat, and after a very long time the family was united and together, and some of the old problems had disappeared, and it was a very happy period. After that, well, we came back to Delhi and I went back to school, and the next thing we heard was that my father was very ill and that we had to rush back to Delhi. But by the time we arrived at Delhi, he had already died. It was too late. It was the first real death of a close person. And I went through a very difficult period, but we'd been brought up in perhaps to be a bit stoic, and I kept it all inside. I didn't let it come out or show in any way. I remember my mother was a little worried because she spoke to some people and saying that Rajiv was bottling it all up inside, it's not coming out, something happened, but well, it remained with me. school really molds you to a very great degree. And I'm sure that the school has had a very deep effect. It's not just a question of studies and the marks and things like that. It's the total education that it gives you, the vision that it gives you that's important. In school, my favorite subjects were maths and geography.
What kind of a student was he?
That's much better. You ask somebody else. Terrible, I think.
I was one of his maths teachers in school, particularly in the last 2 years. He was a good student, I would say good, but not brilliant. As a boy in the class, otherwise a little shy and reserved, it was difficult to get him out to talk.
Yes, I was. I was very quiet, very shy. Well, I can thinking back now, I was embarrassed at being my grandfather's grandson. I think that was really the real reason. I remember when he came to school when we were there, and I just didn't come out. I was always somewhere at the back. They couldn't find me.
After a year at Imperial College in London, Rajiv moved to Trinity College, Cambridge, for a course in mechanical engineering.
Great fun, enjoyed ourselves, didn't do enough studying. I think it really built your character, it developed your personality there and gave you a view of the world which you don't get from India, and especially if you're related to, the Prime Minister, grandson of the Prime Minister.
Even a grandson of a Prime Minister is hard up at times.
It's very difficult because we used to get very low allowances and we couldn't really manage on what we were sent from home, and we had to do something to make up for it, which meant really that you had to work during the holidays. And I worked in all sorts of places, from picking fruit in orchards to selling ice cream to loading and unloading trucks in cold storages to night shifts at bakeries.
In 1964, Rajiv met the Italian Sonia Maino, who came to Cambridge for a year to study at the exclusive Lennox Cook School of Languages. Sonia was the middle of 3 daughters of a building contractor, Stefan Maino, of Orbisano, Italy.
I met Sonia for the first time in Cambridge. Most of us Indians used to go to a restaurant, a Greek restaurant. And that's where I first saw her. And then I sort of tried to organize through a friend to meet.
He had told Christian, a very good friend again, that he really fancied that girl. So he made the arrangements to sit here next to him. In fact, I think I remember, I'm not quite sure, but I remember he was quite full and I said, Rajiv, would you mind if a young girl lady join your table. She said, certainly not for a young lady. I said, you mind, because I'm going to charge you double if I put a young lady like that to your table. And that's how it started. I believe, I'm not quite sure, I think they fallen in love there and then.
From the first time I saw her, I knew that, well, she was the girl for me, and then we fell in love.
I'd never seen anybody so much in love. I mean, both sides. Usually the boy will love the girl much more and vice versa, but with those two, you just couldn't separate them. It's something you only read in books.
It worked very well. It's now 24 years since we met. I found Sonia very straightforward and outspoken, never hiding anything or putting anything away. I found her very understanding and warm as a person. I don't know, I was in love with her.
How did he break the news to his mother?
Well, she'd always been telling me that I don't tell her about my friends, I don't tell her about any girlfriends that I have and all that. And I used to keep telling her that, look, nobody is important. And well, then when I met Sonia, I wrote to her and I told her that, that she's been telling me this for a long time, and now I think that there is this girl whom I like, and I would like her to meet Sonia. And I took Sonia down to London to meet her. She was passing through London on a trip. And, well, that's where they met for the first time. My mother had, well, first she wanted to make sure that I was sure of my mind, and also that Sonia was very clear in her mind, because she realized the differences in cultures and what it meant living in India and, well, being in with all the complications there are of being in our family. And she'd asked us to wait a little while and see how things develop, and that's what we did. We waited a few years.
And so Rajiv returned to India in 1965 and pursued his early interest in flying.
My interest in flying really got started when my grandfather first took me to the gliding club. I forget what he was inaugurating or what the function was, but that was when I had my first ride in a glider, and I think that's where I got hooked. I enjoyed it. I still enjoy it. It gives you a certain freedom. It takes you away from it all in a way. It's a combination of a man and a machine working together very closely, having a very accurate control over the machine, especially on approaches and landings. It has to be very, very precise to be good. And it makes you feel good when you do it well. At the same time, it requires a tremendous amount of discipline, because if you go out of discipline, it's very unforgiving. It doesn't let you get away with indiscipline or with mistakes.
He proved to be an excellent pilot and easily acquired a commercial pilot's license. He joined India's domestic carrier, Indian Airlines, as a check pilot of the Avro planes. 3 years passed. Rajiv and Sonia were in no doubt about their feelings for each other.
And then Sonia came to India and we got married.
Sonia blended easily into the Gandhi household. And with the birth of Rahul and Priyanka, she seemed to blossom into motherhood. Sonia also played hostess to her busy mother-in-law. A strong emotional bond grew between them.
Indira had no daughter, and she always used to miss that part of the experience. And Sonia became a daughter. She became very devoted to Indira, and she in turn became very, very fond of her. And she, I think in certain things, she depended a great deal on her.
She had a very good relationship with my mother. I don't know whether my mother found in her a daughter that she always wanted to have, but never had. She had to put up with just the two of us. But they got along very well. And that bond became much stronger between 77 and 80, when my mother was out of power, and the whole family went through a very difficult period. When Sonia stood up, even when my mother was in jail, it was Sonia that used to cook the food and take the food to jail. And even when Sanjay was in jail, Sonia had to cook the food and then it was sent to the jail. She's very tough in that sense, but she's also very much like I was when I was much younger, and she doesn't like coming into the spotlight. She doesn't like being in public view, in a sense. She's very introverted in that way. She doesn't like to be involved in politics and the hustle-bustle of politics.
The following 14 years, Rajiv was the archetypal upper-middle-class urban family man, earning a respectable 5,000 rupees a month in Indian Airlines, a father of two beautiful children, Rahul and Priyanka.
We had a small family, and well, the airline was very cushy. I enjoyed the work. It wasn't like working, it was like a hobby, and it gave you a lot of time to do what you liked, go around. We used to go to game parks. It was very nice.
Apart from aviation, cars and gadgetry, he became an accomplished photographer.
Photography was one of my really keen interests. I used to take a lot of pictures, and some were quite good.
Some of his pictures found their way into exhibitions.
I like different ones for different things. There's some animal pictures that I like. There's some pictures of Sonia. I've taken a lot of pictures of Sonia that I like very much. Some of the children. But now there's just no time.
And what about Rajiv's personal preferences in music and food?
I like many types of music. I like Indian classical vocal. I like some Western classical and a little bit of opera. But what we hear most of the time are the children's pop music.
देखिए वो इतना कम खाते हैं कि मुश्किल है कहना कि क्या रुचि है। जब मेरे पिताजी थे और हम लोग सब काम पे बहुत रहते थे, तो सुबह उनकी राय थी कि सुबह लोग ठीक से खा लें, फिर दिन भर में समय न मिले न खाएं तो कोई चिंता नहीं। इसलिए उन्होंने दलिया खाने की आदत डाली थी, और अभी भी राजीव का सबसे शौकीन मतलब खाना अगर चुन के खाए तो दलिया, अभी भी वही खाता है ज़्यादा।
I have a weak point. I have a sweet tooth. So I eat all the wrong things. I like jalebis, I like rasgullas, I like chocolates, barfis.
पंडित जी के तरह उनको मीठे का शौक है, लेकिन क्योंकि मुझसे वजन बढ़ जाता है इसलिए खुद अनुशासन पूर्वक थोड़ा कम खाते हैं।
So I don't do any exercise to speak of. I don't eat very much.
पहले हमारे यहाँ राजीव गांधी बहुत आया करते थे प्राइम मिनिस्टर बनने से पहले, और अक्सर वो फैमिली के साथ आया करते थे। तो मेरे से कहते थे भाई मदन लाल वो पुदीना पराठा लिया, भाई कड़क पुदीना पराठा, तो मैं लेके जाता था साहब के लिए, बड़े खुश हो जाते थे। लेकिन अफसोस की बात तो ये है कि जब से वो प्रधानमंत्री बने वो बुखारा में तो आते नहीं अब।
It is one of the things that I miss. I miss not being able to, well, just being a normal human being. I can't take the family out. You can't go for a picnic or a meal or It's something that's just got lost. But what's very difficult is what the children have to go through, and they really have to go through a very difficult period. They can't go out and play, they can't be normal children, they can't have normal lives. Even their education has got all messed up because of the security problems. And if anybody really has had to sacrifice, it's been the children. But like all brothers and sisters, they have a lot in common with each other, and yet there are differences. Like we had between Sanjay and I. Priyanka, in a sense, is much tougher. She's a lot like my mother, strong-willed. Rahul is a much more outgoing, sporting type of person, and much more sensitive, perhaps.
Are they interested in entering politics?
No, neither of them. They're still in a very developing stage, so it's difficult to say what they'll turn out to be. But I think we were much more quiet and, well, like I said earlier, less interested in politics. They read the newspapers, they're very interested in what's happening, both of them.
Who would you say is more suitable to politics?
You know, it's difficult to say who's suitable to politics. I wouldn't have said I was suitable for politics, but here I am.
What kind of a father is Rajiv?
Well, I like to let the children grow up with the broadest possible vision, without trying to push them in any direction which I think is right, or trying to influence them into a particular thing. But at the same time, I feel that it's important to be tough on the other side and see that they don't go into a direction that I think is wrong. So I think I'm fairly accommodating to a great degree, and then not beyond the point.
What is the secret of his happy married life?
I don't know. We love each other, I think. And we still do after so many years.
What kind of a husband would he describe himself as?
How can I answer that? Well, caring, I hope.
How would he advise other husbands?
I think, one thing that does happen is that one gets too involved with work and neglects the family, the home, forgets that the wife is a person, is a human being, and needs to be, well, dealt with as another human being. And I think perhaps that's the most important. And giving adequate, well, within the constraints, adequate time and attention to the home, to the family. The family is an equal responsibility, and I don't really divide up anything as her problem and my problem. I'm talking within the home. Of course, on the work side, it's totally different. When the children were small, we used to take turns in, staying up nights to see who looks after them, One night I'd stay up, and then one night she'd stay up, so we shared fairly equally in bringing them up.
His life as a family man and a pilot seemed unaltered by the political storms that were buffeting Mrs. Gandhi.
I was never interested in politics or public life, and like I said to you earlier, in school and in my younger days, I just wanted to be out of it.
From the beginning, Rajiv was content with letting the spotlight play on Sanjay, knowing he was there to shoulder their mother's political load. Rajiv stayed in the background.
I wanted to be myself and alone. And that was very much the case while I was flying also. We had a little family, and we were all very happy.
If fate had not intervened, he would have gone through life a private citizen and a family man. In the summer of 1980, a shocking incident occurred in New Delhi. A Pitts aircraft crashed, killing the pilot, Rajiv's younger and politically aspiring brother, Sanjay. It would take Rajiv another few months to realize the cause and effect of this accident that would change the entire focus of his life. Suddenly, as if by some preordained scheme of things, Rajiv became the focus of political and public attention. He found himself dragged from self-imposed obscurity into the harsh glare of national publicity.
Then with my brother's accident, things changed. My mother needed help. She felt that she couldn't get it from anywhere except from me.
For many months, Rajiv resisted pressures from his mother and others to enter politics. Until a year later, he finally decided to enter the political arena.
We had very long talks, my wife and I, before I left flying and I joined politics. She was not too happy about it, mainly because she felt that in a sense, she would be losing me. I think that was the crux of the issue. But when we talked about it and discussed it, it was a joint decision.
On May 10th, 1981, Rajiv's resignation from Indian Airlines was accepted. The next day, from Amethi, his late brother's constituency, he filed his nomination papers for election in the Lok Sabha. And with that signature, a chapter in his life had ended. And a new one had begun.
वायदे थे, संजय के नहीं, उसके पहले इंदिरा जी के नहीं, बल्कि उससे भी पहले मेरे पिता राजीव गांधी जी के वायदे थे। और तब से लेके आज तक जो काम हो रहा है, एक तरह से उनके वायदे पूरे करने पर हो रहा है।
The election was held on 14th June 1981. And on the 17th June, Rajiv was declared elected. Sonia would probably have been quite content to linger in the shadow of her protected privacy. But destiny willed otherwise. Fate intervened for the second time, this time in the form of an assassin's bullet.
It took her almost 2 years, perhaps more, to get over it. And even now, she's not completely through with it. And also because she was the only one at home. There was nobody else. She took Mommy to the hospital. And I had on her laps. It really shattered her. My last meeting with my mother was on Diwali night in '84. I was doing a lot of touring during those days, and I had just had a break for Diwali and I'd been in Delhi for 2 days. And I remember talking with her after all the fireworks and everything was over. And then next morning, I went off again on tour, and I did not see her after that. I was touring West Bengal, and as we were leaving the public meeting, somebody said that there had been some shooting and she had been hit, but they didn't know how badly or the extent of injury, and they said that we should go straight back to Delhi. On the aircraft, we listened to the news, and although they didn't say so, it sort of one felt that there were not many chances of her surviving. So what was really with her? What might have happened, what she must have gone through. Shock went through me, but I kept it in myself as something private and personal of mine rather than something that the world must share with me. And that is how it has been.
And so, as with every end, there is a new beginning and a new hope.